I was driving through the Texas Panhandle late one night, a long, empty stretch of highway ahead of me. I had taken this route plenty of times before, but something about that night felt different. The air was thick, heavy, almost suffocating. There wasn't another car in sight, just my old Chevy rattling along the lonely road. I kept my hands tight on the wheel, trying to shake the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I had been on the road for hours, exhausted but pushing through, knowing I still had miles to go before the next town. The Panhandle highways could be brutal at night. Long, endless roads cutting through open plains, no streetlights, barely any signs of life. Just darkness stretching in every direction. I had just passed an old, rusted sign warning about sharp turns ahead when I saw them. Headlights in my rearview mirror. I hadn't noticed a car behind me for miles, but now, there it was. A massive truck barreling toward me at an impossible speed. Its headlights were blinding, high beams locked onto me like a predator stalking prey. I squinted, trying to make out the vehicle behind me, but I couldn't see a driver. The cab was pitch black, no silhouette, no movement, just empty. I gripped the wheel tighter. Maybe it was some reckless trucker messing with me. But as I pushed the gas, speeding up to put some distance between us, the truck matched my pace. The engine roared, louder than any semi I had ever heard. An unnatural sound, guttural and deep like metal scraping against bone. I hit 80 miles per hour. The truck surged forward. I swerved into the right lane, hoping it would pass. It didn't. Instead, it drifted closer, edging me toward the shoulder. The road was narrow, no barriers, just a steep drop into the dark abyss of the Texas plains. My heart pounded as the truck inched even closer. Then it slammed into my back bumper. The impact sent my truck lurching forward, my tires skidding on the asphalt. I fought to keep control, my pulse hammering in my ears. I slammed my fist against the horn, hoping to signal the driver, but there was no reaction, no flicker of recognition from the cab, no movement. The truck rammed me again, harder this time. My truck fishtailed. Gravel sprayed from my tires as I veered dangerously close to the edge of the road. I could feel the wheels struggling to grip the pavement. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I slammed my foot on the gas, but it was useless. No matter how fast I went, the truck was always there, its headlights burning through the night, its presence crushing down on me like something out of a nightmare. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. No screeching brakes, no dust cloud, no retreating taillights, just hull, empty highway behind me. I checked my rearview mirror again, my hands shaking. Nothing. Just endless darkness. I slowed down, my mind racing. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe the exhaustion was playing tricks on me. I pulled over to the side of the road, rubbing my face with trembling fingers. The engine hummed beneath me, steady, chill. Then, a shadow moved in my mirror. My blood turned to ice. Something was behind me. Not headlights, not a truck. Something else. The shape was massive, distorted, shifting like a mirage. It loomed just beyond the reach of my taillights, its form impossible to define. I didn't wait to see more. I threw the truck into drive, tires screaming as I sped away. My hands were slick with sweat, my heartbeat a violent drum in my chest. I didn't stop until I reached the next town. At the first gas station I found, I stumbled out of my truck, gasping for air, my legs weak beneath me. My first instinct was to call someone. The police. When the officer arrived, I struggled to explain what had happened. The phantom truck, the attacks, the thing I had seen in the mirror. I could tell he didn't believe me. He asked if I had been drinking, if I was overtired. I insisted. There had to be marks on my truck. There had to be proof. We stepped outside, and I felt my stomach drop. There was nothing. No dents, no scratches, no dust disturbed on my bumper, like nothing had ever happened. I stood there, staring at my truck, my mind refusing to accept it. The officer gave me a long look, then patted my shoulder. "Get some rest," he said before walking away. But I know what I saw. I know what happened. And I know that truck is still out there, waiting. I was driving north on Highway 101, heading home from Santa Barbara. It was past midnight, and the road was completely empty. The ocean stretched to my left, dark and endless, while cliffs loomed to my right. The air was cool, but something felt off. Then, I saw him, a man standing by the road, soaked, staring at the ocean. His clothes were in tatters, his hair plastered to his face with water. As I passed, I caught a glimpse of his hollow, lifeless eyes. Then he vanished. Minutes later, I nearly crashed into another figure, an old fisherman, barefoot, standing in the middle of the road. I swerved violently, my tires screeching, but when I looked back, he was gone. I turned off the radio, trying to focus. That's when I heard the voices, a deep, mournful chant, like an old sea shanty. Lost at sea, never home. Lost at sea, never home. Then a thick fog rolled in, swallowing the road. I slowed down, my heart hammering. Through the mist, a line of men appeared, standing in the middle of the road. Their clothes were wet, their eyes hollow. One stepped forward, half his face missing, his jaw hanging unnaturally. Suddenly, they all rushed at me. Before I could react, something slammed into my car, hard. The entire vehicle jolted, metal screeching. I heard hands pounding against the windows, the roof, the trunk. A muffled scream echoed through the fog. I floored the gas. The car shook violently as more figures hit it from all sides, their faces appearing in the windows, mouths open in silent screams. A hand smacked against the windshield, leaving a wet, bloody print before disappearing. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The fog thinned. The road was empty, but the dents on my car said otherwise. I took a deep, shuddering breath, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, but I refused to look in the rearview mirror. Then, a deafening slam against my driver's side door sent my car swerving toward the cliff's edge. I yanked the wheel back, barely regaining control. My breathing was ragged, panic clawing at my chest. The car lurched again, this time from the roof. It sounded like something, or someone, had climbed on top. Heavy, wet footsteps thudded above me. My fingers trembled as I pressed the gas harder. desperate to shake whatever was up there. Then, the worst part, I heard a voice. Not a whisper, not a chant. A voice right outside my window. "Help us." I risked a glance. A rotting face stared back at me through the glass, mouth twisted in agony, lips moving but making no sound. Water dripped from his hollow eye sockets. His skeletal fingers dragged across the window, leaving streaks of seawater and something darker. I let out a strangled cry and slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The thing on my roof slid off, hitting the pavement with a sickening thud. In the rearview mirror, I saw them all, standing in the road, staring after me. Their bodies flickered, as if shifting between this world and whatever nightmare they came from. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station miles away. I stumbled out of the car, my whole body shaking. The attendant gave me a concerned look. "You okay, man?" he asked. I hesitated, then muttered I saw people on the road. They just... The attendant's expression darkened. "You saw them, didn't you?" I didn't want to know more. I didn't want to hear that others had seen them too. I pulled out my phone and, without thinking, called the police. They told me they'd send a patrol car, but the way they weren't surprised by my story chilled me even more. I sat in my car, watching the road, waiting for the police to arrive. And even when they did, the road was empty, like they had never been there. But I know the truth, and I swear, I will never drive that highway alone again. I had heard the stories about the spook light for years, strange glowing orbs appearing on the remote roads near the Missouri-Oklahoma border. Some said it was the restless spirit of a Native American. Others believed it was a soldier searching for his lost head. But the darker stories claimed that those who followed the light too far never came back the same. I never believed any of it, not until the night it found me. It was a Friday night in late September 2018. My friend Ethan, his girlfriend Ashley, and I decided to track down the spook light. We drove out to a remote stretch of road, surrounded by dense trees, the air heavy with the smell of damp earth. There were no streetlights, no signs of life, just an endless stretch of gravel disappearing into darkness. We parked and turned off the engine. Silence settled over us, thick and suffocating. An hour passed with nothing but the hum of crickets. Just when I was about to give up, Ashley gasped and pointed. A dim light hovered in the distance, flickering like a candle, shifting from orange to white to green. It danced along the road, swaying gently. I started the truck and eased forward, inching closer. The light split into two, then three, darting through the trees, moving in impossible patterns. My breath hitched as the temperature in the truck plummeted. A dense fog rolled in, swallowing the road. The lights stopped moving. They hovered, watching. Then, in a blink, they rushed us. The truck rocked violently as something slammed into the side. A deep, resonant bang echoed through the cab. My hands clenched the wheel as another hit sent the vehicle swaying. The lights had changed. They weren't orbs anymore. They had taken shape. Shadowy figures moved in the fog, their bodies distorted, their limbs unnaturally long. A sickening whisper filled the air, a language I couldn't understand. The voices twisted, overlapping, growing louder, surrounding us. My breath came in sharp gasps as I tried to turn the truck, but it wouldn't budge. A sharp knock rattled my window. My head snapped to the side. A hand, skeletal and wet, pressed against the glass. Fingers dragged slowly down, leaving streaks of moisture and something darker. The whispering turned into laughter, hollow, mocking. My pulse thundered in my ears as I tried the ignition again. The truck roared to life. Without thinking, I slammed the gas, the tires spinning against the gravel before launching us forward. The figures in the fog didn't chase us. They just stood there, watching. We didn't speak the whole way back. Ashley sat curled against the door, her face pale, while Ethan kept his eyes locked on the road ahead. By the time I dropped them off, my hands were still shaking. When I got home, I locked my doors, closed my curtains, and told myself it was over. I woke up to the sound of knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks against my bedroom window. My heart pounded as I sat up, my body frozen. I glanced at the clock, 3:14 a.m. The room was dark, but the knocking came again. My stomach twisted as I forced myself to look. Something stood outside. A shape, just beyond the glass, its outline barely visible in the dim light. It didn't move, didn't shift. It just stood there, watching. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its stare. My breath caught in my throat as a low, wheezing whisper drifted through the window. I scrambled out of bed, grabbed my phone, and dialed Ethan. It rang twice before he picked up, his voice groggy and irritated. "What? Do you hear anything?" My voice was barely a whisper. A long pause. Then, in a hushed tone, "Yeah." Cold dread settled in my chest. "There's someone outside," he muttered, standing by the driveway. Neither of us spoke for a long time. I could hear his shaky breathing through the phone. Finally, I whispered, "What do we do?" A loud thud shook my window, followed by the sound of nails dragging across the glass. I bolted for the light switch, flicking it on, but by the time I turned back, it was gone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I checked outside. My stomach dropped. Wet footprints led from my window to the middle of the yard. But they didn't lead away. They just stopped. I never went back to that road, but some nights, when I'm alone on the highway, I see it. A flicker of light in my mirror, keeping pace with me, watching.